This is Moon Princess ASMR, and I was going to read a book for you today called A Brief History of Montmaray. It's a wonderful book. I'm going to go ahead and read the back of it in just a moment. I need to write down what has just happened. I need to set down the truth. If I write lies or if I write nothing at all, this journal is worth nothing. I must do this in case anything happens, anything else happens. All right, this is what happened. Tonight, every single terrible thing that I can remember. Sophie Fitz-Osborne lives in a crumbling castle in the tiny island kingdom of Montmaray, along with her tomboy younger sister, Henry, her beautiful, intellectual cousin, Veronica, and Veronica's father, the completely mad King John. When Sophie receives a journal for her 16th birthday, she decides to write about her life on the island, but it is 1936, and bigger events are on the horizon. Everything Sophie knows and loves is about to change. All right. So I'm just going to read on page 15, because I personally like this section better than the intro. 24th October 1936. I did have several thoughts last night after I put my book away, but they were pathetic rather than profound. They were, I must admit, mostly about Simon Chester, Rebecca's son. My thoughts have been wandering relentlessly in his direction ever since his last visit at the start of the summer. He is not exactly a visitor, having lived at Montmaray for all those years before he went off to London. However, that was so long ago that I can't help imagining how he must see us now. Not that he does see me, and no wonder he barely notices I exist. I'm so dull compared to the others. Veronica is clever. Even Simon acknowledges that, and the two of them loathe each other. Toby is charming, funny, and handsome. Henry is like a force of nature. I am neither pretty nor strong-willed, nor particularly talented at anything, which doesn't usually bother me except when Simon is here. He makes me feel so dissatisfied with myself, except I have no idea how to go about improving the situation. So I just berate myself silently, which makes it worse, like picking at a scab. Note, whenever I feel like this, I must pretend to be Veronica and say firmly to myself, who on earth cares what Simon Chester thinks anyways? Then think very hard about some other subject. All right, lovely weather we've been having lately. Oh, it's no good. I might as well write it down. It's not as though anyone else is going to read this. I found an excellent hiding place for my book. I'm not sure that it's love exactly what I feel for Simon. Perhaps it's just a peculiar and embarrassing type of curiosity. During his last visit, for example, I found myself staring at his strong fingers curled around the salt cellar and admiring the precision of the comb furrows in his shiny hair. It could simply be that he is the only young man I know who is not related to me. But it's all very awkward. For one thing, I'm planning to marry him. But I'll have to marry someone at some stage, and if I'm this inept at being charming and interesting around Simon, then my prospects of attracting anyone better are fairly dim. Heavens, what a snob I sound, but it's not my fault. I'm a princess, albeit one from an impoverished and inconsequential island kingdom that is miles from anywhere. I can't help all the rules and regulations that govern those born into our noble and ancient family, and I can't exactly tell Aunt Charlotte. Sorry, I'm unable to accept the proposal of Eric, Ludwig, Wilhelm, that young Habsburg you've managed to unearth. You see, I've fallen in love with the housekeeper's son. Oh, change the subject, Sophia. All right. I will look out the gatehouse window and contemplate the view. Yes, that's better. Unlike me, it is very beautiful, especially at this time of year. I can only imagine how mysterious and menacing the island must seem to strangers. An enormous black rock looming out of the ocean, its jagged peaks circled by seabirds and wisps of cloud, towering cliffs with caves gashed into their faces, a narrow wind-swept plateau at one end, the grim memorial cross at Southhead, dozens of dead men's names etched into the stone under a single date, abandoned cottages scattered along the edge of a dark, deep pool, their roof slates long blown away and great gaping holes where the doors and windows were. And then there is the castle, stark and forbidding, cut off from the rest of the island by a perilous chasm. But when one has lived on Montmaray all one's life, when one's family has lived here for centuries, it is simply home. That long stretch of rock, spread thinly with grass, for instance, we call it the Green, and it's where we build our midsummer bonfire each year. The great pool is for summer picnics and swimming races. The line of rocks past the old cottages is where we gather mussels. The cove at the base of the most imposing cliff is the best place to sink lobster pots. Wild strawberries spring up around the base of the memorial cross each summer, sheltering under the rosemary bushes. The hill is spread with sweet-smelling briar and whispering grasses, with bright patches of asters and heart's ease and Bartholomew's treasure. Then either side of the hill there is the beautiful indigo sea, rolling on and up into the sky. As for the sky itself, well, infinity. That's the only way I can describe it. Nothing interrupts it. Toby says that in London there are places where one looks up and can only see a tiny square of sky, and it's hardly ever blue. No wonder people in the city streets always look so grim in photographs. No wonder I feel grim at the thought of ever having to leave the island. And now I can see Veronica striding through the tall purple grasses and looking the very opposite of grim. She has her canvas satchel strapped across her front and a bundle of driftwood for the stove under one arm. She's probably on her way back from visiting George in the village. We call it the village because of all the cottages, but really only one family lives there now. Well, two, the Smiths and the Spencers, but they're all related. The Smiths are Jimmy, who is a bit older than Henry, and his widowed mother, Alice. The Spencer family is Mary, Alice's sister, and George, Jimmy's great-great-uncle. No one knows how old George is, but he claims to remember the wedding of Queen Victoria of England, which, personally, I have my doubts about. It would make him nearly 100. But it's certainly true that he knows more about Montmaray than anyone else alive, which is one of the reasons Veronica loves spending time with him. Another is that she can practice her Cornish with him, and he's the only one left on the island who speaks it fluently. She writes down everything he says in Cornish or in English, and then adds it to the mountain of paper in the library that will eventually become a brief history of Montmaray. She has been hammering away at this normally Henry would be down at the village too, but I think she went back to bed after breakfast. She did go out fishing last night, the horrible child. Henry is meant to do 3 hours of lessons every morning, now that Toby is back at school, but she's managed to avoid them so far. Not that Veronica or I have pushed too hard for lessons to resume, because we're the ones who were supposed to teach her. When we were her age, we had a governess and tutors, but there was more money then, and besides, there was Toby to consider. It would have been quite embarrassing if he'd turned up at Eton, unable to read. After Toby went away to school, Veronica and I mostly taught ourselves from books in the library. Veronica, of course, proved to be much better at developing her mind than I was. One could argue that this was because she had a better mind to begin with. However, one could also argue that I've squandered countless hours reading romantic novels, planning my future trousseau, or however you say that, sorry, and daydreaming about Simon. Hours that could have been far better employed learning French grammar or reading Plato. Aunt Charlotte did continue to dispatch tutors to us at irregular intervals for a while, but they didn't tend to last long. Often it turned out their agency had neglected to mention that we live on a small island in the middle of the Bay of Biscay, and they didn't cope very well when they ran out of cigarettes or face powder and realized that the nearest shop was 200 miles away. Or worse, we resent the sort of girl who thought that living in a castle would be madly poetic, who pictured herself drifting along the wall walk in a flowing gown whilst reciting Keats or drilling her fingertips in the moat as swans glided by. We don't have a moat, just a rickety drawbridge that connects the castle to the rest of the island. There is water beneath the drawbridge at the bottom of the chasm, but it contains sharks rather than swans. Furthermore, climbing the ladder to the top of the curtain wall wearing a flowing gown would look very undignified, especially in howling gales and torrential rain, which is our usual weather for a great deal of the year. Even one of these girls managed to last more than a fortnight in the absence of hot baths and electric lights. Something always happened. Henry would accidentally on purpose lock her in the blue room with the ghost, or Uncle John would tip his soup over her, or Veronica would catch her mixing up her ablative and her accusative. During Latin translation, be very scathing. It always ended in tears, and the tears were rarely ours. Anyway, I decided that this morning was not the time to confront Henry on the issues of lessons. So much for my resolution to be firmer, but I'm never at my best first thing in the morning, and I was feeling especially wobbly today because I had that dream again last night. Perhaps I should have written nightmare. I don't know whether it is or not. I see the same thing each time, and sometimes I feel quite calm about it, and other times I wake up gasping and trembling and longing to shake Veronica awake for a dose of her logical comfort. Last night was somewhere in between. As always, I was alone in the small boat, rocking back and forth. With the slap of the waves, my fingernails digging into the damp wood. The sky was black and silver, but there was no wind, no lightning, nothing truly threatening, and yet the back of my neck began to prickle with dread. I knew that whatever I did, I mustn't look down into the water, but I couldn't help myself, and there it was, that thing, long and white and unraveling just beyond my reach, drifting slowly towards the ocean floor. I never managed to figure out what it is. Sometimes I'm almost certain it's a fragment of sail wrapped around a sinking mast. Other times I think it's a dying sunfish or a shark. Last night I could have sworn a part of it moved sluggishly against the current as though it were trying to signal to me. But then I woke up shivering, and now Veronica is marching across the drawbridge, which makes me shiver all at once, all over again. I always step very warily, taking care not to look down through the gaps where the slants have rotted away. It's not heights I mind so much as depths. Peering further out the gatehouse window, I can make out the green and white swell of the sea below her. Deceptively calm, the spent deep feigns her rest. As Kipling would say, it makes me picture all the torn apart ships and picked clean skeletons, shifting about beneath the waves, victims of Montmaray's treacherous rocks. Oh, all those poor dead sailors, eels slithering through their staring eye sockets. What's that noise? Oh, it's probably just some of Toby's pigeons nesting in the chimney. It couldn't be ghosts. Ghosts don't make cooing noises, and besides, I don't think anyone ever died up here. Note, ask Veronica about this. I wouldn't really mind if there was a ghost, so long as it was friendly. The one in the blue room is. Anyways, a ghost would keep Rebecca away. She's fearfully superstitious. It's one of my many faults. Well, whatever the mysterious sound is, it's not very good at repelling Rebecca after all, because she's just shouted up the ladder that she needs me to go down to the village for milk. Isn't that supposed to be Henry's job? Bother. We'll write more later. And that's that chapter. Hope you enjoyed it.